Good evening. Welcome back to Normal Island Live. I'm Callum Taylor, and for those of you that were watching eagerly, you've already seen my face tonight. So hi. I am delighted to be joined this evening by the Green Party's Frank Adlington-Stringer. Frank, it is a pleasure to have you on the show today. How are you?
I'm really well, Callum. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be back. It's been a while.
It has. I think the last time we spoke was during the deputy leadership elections, actually, when we did all the interviews. I don't think we've had you on since then, have we?
No, this is the first time back, so
Yeah.
it's yeah. I'm really well, and I'm pleased to be here, and I'm looking forward to the show.
Well, it's great to have you. So, yeah, it's going to be a good one. So, coming up on tonight's show, the Green Party surge in the polls, a global aid mission takes aid to Cuba, and a Green Party councillor has been in handcuffs for 10 days straight. Now, you can help us grow by visiting turnleftmedia.co.uk/support to help fund our work, or by becoming a YouTube member. Now, sorry, this is it's lefty tech. Just bear with me. Um, yeah, and as always, of course, we are always interested to hear what you guys have got to say as well. So if you have any comments as we go through the show tonight, please make sure to comment in the chat, like and share as well. And if you're not a subscriber, make sure to hit that subscribe button. So, moving on to our first story. In the latest YouGov poll, the Green Party are once again in second place behind Reform UK. But what's unique about this particular poll is an extra prompt let me start that again. But what is unique about this particular poll is an extra prompt which asks for participants to ignore tactical voting and vote for your true preference. The question read, if there were a general election in the UK tomorrow under preferential voting, how would you vote by ranking the following parties in the order of your preference? Put one for your most preferred party and so on. Now, based on that question, these are the results. What you see is the Greens reach a whopping 23% and are only 4% behind Reform. Labour all the way down there on 16%. Now, in reality, people do tactically vote, and given that Labour are in government, many still believe that a vote for Labour is the best way of stopping reform. In Gorton and Denton, that was the argument made by Labour. Only they can stop reform. The Greens have no chance. And we all remember how that went down. Let's have a reminder of the results. I mean, it wasn't even close. The Greens won with over 4,000 votes, and Labour, they came third. However, you can't discount tactical voting, and it is true that Labour have a huge majority, whilst the Green Party have 5 MPs. In terms of the number of seats, mathematically, Labour would have the best chance of stopping reform. However, in terms of vote share, if we were to believe the polls, Labour would come away with less than 100 seats, and Reform winning a huge majority, with no party coming close. Now, Frank, you've been on the doorstep many, many times. What has been the biggest challenge for the Greens when trying to win over Labour voters? And do you still hear people say that Labour are better suited to beat Reform?
I think things have changed dramatically, and I mean, I joined the Green Party in late 2018, and just seeing how the landscape has shifted since then is incredible. We are challenging as one of the biggest political parties in this country. We're in the top five now, and now being in this poll in the top two is just incredible. And people on the doorstep are reflecting that back to us. People aren't afraid to vote Green. They want to go and vote for politics that resonates with the way they feel, with someone who is going to stand up for their communities. And the Green Party are offering that, and people aren't afraid to go and vote for that. So perhaps we owe Reform a bit of a favour in some ways, because they started this breaking down of the two party politics. And whilst they might be establishment, they've they've given a lot of people a reason to look for an alternative, and it's us that are providing that. And Labour have shown in Gorton and Denton that they are unable to stand up to Reform's divisive politics, and at the same time, they have proven that they want to stamp out progressive left wing voices and will resort to dirty tactics to try and beat us. But even that's not working. So they're going to be overtaken by the Lib Dems, I think, sometime soon.
I mean, on average, you're polling between 15 and 19%, with a lot of the latest polls showing that you're way above Labour. Um, However, that's not a complete replacement, and to have a shot at any kind of power, you need to be closer to 30%. So, what do you think the party needs to do to get the remainder of Labour voters, especially those who are a bit more moderate on side?
I mean, Zach Polanski's only been leader for what, 6 months, so give us some time. We've already had this huge surge in the polls, and I expect that we will only continue to grow as people hear more from Zach, from the Green Party, and what we're doing. And as we continue to win more and more elections, we've won the by-election in Gorton and Denton. We've won by-elections in council seats now, and it's just one thing after another for the Green Party. We're just getting stronger and stronger. So I think people are coming on that journey with us, and they're seeing when Greens are in power what they're achieving for their communities, and they're liking that. So we're just offering more and more of that, and it's great to have people behind us. And yeah, Bruno the dog agrees.
I mean, do you think this has backfired slightly on reform as well? Because obviously, Nigel Farage not that long ago was complaining that YouGov were publishing data that was favouring, so that was sort of withholding the reform vote. Um, However, what's happened is when they've added this extra question in, and we're looking at it this way, it's actually the Greens who benefit significantly from it. Um, I'm just interested to have any thoughts about that, and sort of this idea from reform that, because they're now doing worse in the polls than what they were doing, even a couple of months ago, that somehow the pollsters are suppressing the support for reform.
I think the reform vote clearly is starting to weaken and dampen a little bit, and
Mm,
it's been interesting to see as well at the Greens. Like there's almost like a Venn diagram crossover sometimes between people who are voting reform as like an anti-establishment move, and now that there's a hopeful, positive anti-establishment party which can win in the Green Party, maybe that's a reason why there's a shift away from reform in some ways. People using it as a protest vote, and now they don't need to in the same way. I don't know, but Reform certainly aren't doing anything to help themselves, and they're certainly showing that they can't be a party of government if they can't win in Gorton and Denton. If they can't beat the Greens, then what can they do? And so we're in a new era of politics, I think. But if you look at polls over the years, they've always shown that the Green Party is the most trusted in
mm,
politics, and that's continuing. And so the one thing Reform are doing is showing distrust in politics. They are they have their candidate for Gorton and Denton in Matthew Goodwin, they are showing that they're the same as the establishment politics. And so people
mm.
are, I think, coming to the Green Party and because we are a party of principle.
Can you explain that crossover a bit to people? Because I think some people struggle to understand this idea that there are people who might want to vote reform that would then vote green. I mean, we saw it in Gorton and Denton, and I remember being out on the doorstep with yourself as well during
Mm-hmm.
the campaign, and we were talking to people who didn't know whether to vote reform or green. But how does that come about? How do people end up in that situation? Because obviously the two parties are quite different.
They are, and it's a really interesting place to be, I think, as a voter. If you are thinking I could vote Reform or Green, and it sounds like something which perhaps doesn't make sense to people initially, but we are both parties which, well, Reform used to support proportional representation, but we're both parties which have over time both pushed for that, and we're both very anti-establishment. We want to turn the system on its head. Now, people have seen Reform um, sort of shift more to the centre, I think, as they're trying to, Nigel Farage trying to position himself as prime minister. I think some people say when they're saying they're now going to go and vote for Restore or some of these other, even more right wing parties. I don't really see Reform as a centrist party myself, but we we do find this very interesting dynamic of Reform and Green, and it's people who want to be able to be away from the system which robs them of every penny. And I think during a cost of living crisis, when you have corporate greed and people struggling to make ends meet, then people want to vote for anything or anyone who's prepared to go and smash a system. Reform want to smash things and leave them that way.
Yeah.
We've got actual practical solutions. I think
Do you worry that the Green Party might peak too soon? I mean, we've kind of seen that with reform, haven't we? Where there's been this huge trajectory where they've gone up and up and up and up in the polls, hit about 30%, and now they're sort of slowly heading back down again. We're probably about 3 years out from a general election, maybe less than that, depending on what happens. But is there a concern that this sort of Polanski effect will start to wear off, or are you confident that actually this growth is just going to keep coming?
I mean, we don't believe in infinite growth on a finite planet, so I can't sit here and claim that it will last forever. I think
Hmm.
Zach's still got a lot more to give, and still a lot of people don't know Zach or haven't heard all of the great messaging that he's got to give, and there's still a narrative that the Green Party's only just started to tell, and so hopefully that peak will continue for quite some time. I think the elections that are coming on the 7th of May, the local elections, will be a big moment for the party, particularly given that the majority of those elections up for grabs are in London. So there's going to be, and Keir Starmer's constituency of Camden as well, and what happens there. Greens predicted to do really well on the council there, and maybe throw it into an overall control. So it's always been Labour. So there are big things happening at the moment, but there is obviously at the back of my mind, I'll be really honest about it, this fear that last May the story was all about reform, and they won everything, and
Hmm.
they have kind of disappointed people since. They said they were going to fix everything and they were going to cut taxes and that there'll be no more potholes. And look where we are. Reform councils have put taxes up to the maximum amount in some places. They've done that here in Derbyshire. Our potholes here have been rated the worst in the country. So those promises haven't come true. I don't necessarily think that the same thing is going to happen to the Green Party. We're a different kind of politics, often electing different kinds of politicians and councillors,
Hmm.
people who actually want to work hard for their community. But we shall see what happens after May. It's an interesting time of having huge expectation for the party, which we've never had before, and whether we can match what people expect us to do. If people will go out and vote like they say they will in these polls, and how we as a party then go on from there. But um, it's an exciting time. I have much more hope than I have fear.
Well, that's good to hear, I suppose. I mean, do you worry that um, like you've talked about obviously when like reform and they've got into power and they've got won the councils. Um, it, are you concerned about the Greens, sweeping the floor and winning lots of seats in May because it then means that they have to perform, or I imagine that you're fairly confident that Green councillors will do a good job and be able to hold on to those seats.
Yeah, I think, and so my job, my day job, is working managing campaigns. I'm currently doing that
Hmm.
in London. So I'm on the ground and seeing some of the hardworking candidates we've got, councillors that are seeking re-election that are going to help those teams with the experience they've got, but then also new people coming into the fold and lots of new members as well who've not just come from the Labour Party, but people who just want to take part in our politics and help make their communities better places to live. And so I think that we're going to enter administrations after the 7th of May with really good teams of people that just want to get things done. And that's where we differ from reform, I think. Not to say that it's going to be easy. I think that there is a massive step for us as a party to take, and one that I think we have to take to professionalise, to grow up as a party. And we have to remember that we're only 50 years old as a party. It might seem like a long time, given that there's little startups now like Reform, but we have taken a long time to get to this point, against parties like Labour and Conservatives, which have been here forever. And we are slowly getting that experience, that expertise, and getting to a point now where I think we've talked about getting that 30% to be able to get into government. I think people want to see us get there.
Mm. Well, we suppose we'll find out, won't we? Elections around the corner, so brilliant. Let's move on to our second story. So, this week, an international aid convoy known as the Nuestra America has been delivering aid to Cuba as the United States continues its blockade of the nation, causing widespread blackouts and mass starvation. As Cuba faces a nationwide blackout and energy crisis, the first members of the global aid mission, taking more than 20 tons of food, medical supplies, and solar panel equipment, arrived in Havana on Wednesday. organised by an alliance of progressive groups. Nuestra America Convoy to Cuba, the NACC, the NACC, is being pitched as an act of humanitarian support for the island nation and a protest against the United States' total oil blockade on Cuba. Now, figures such as Jeremy Corbyn, Kneecap, and Hassan Piker are part of an international mission to break the siege and stand against US imperialism. Jeremy Corbyn made this statement on Twitter. He said the United States is intentionally starving the people of Cuba with its illegal and barbaric blockade. That's why I'm joining the Nuestra America convoy to Cuba. Together, we can break the siege, save lives, and stand up for the cause of Cuban self-determination. Now, the blockade on Cuba is part of a long-standing effort by the United States to bully the nations, and successive presidents have enacted sanctions on the nation, with Barack Obama easing them during his time as president. However, when Trump won in 2016, he began to overturn many of Obama's more Cuban-friendly policies, accelerating the suffering of the Cuban people. Trump has made it clear that he wants to control and own Cuba.
I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba. That'd be good. That's a big honor.
Taking Cuba.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah. Taking Cuba. I mean, whether I free it, take it, I think I could do anything I want with it. You want to know the truth? They're a very weakened nation right now.
Now, just yesterday, Cuba faced one of its worst blackouts. And our friends over at Navarra Media sent Stephen Methven to report on the ground.
I'm in Havana, the capital of Cuba, a beautiful but somewhat crumbling city. And I'm here as part of a 100-strong delegation from across Europe, part of the Nuestra America convoy, delivering aid, medical supplies, that kind of thing, to the people of Cuba who are struggling under US President Donald Trump's ongoing oil embargo. We're also here to stand in solidarity with the people of Cuba who are battling that embargo with their usual resistance and resilience. We flew out from Milan Malpensa airport yesterday, where the people on board had gathered aid and packed it into boxes themselves. Other people who couldn't come along had contributed aid for those boxes.
Now, that may not sound like much, but organisers of the convoy say that more than 4 tons of aid was flown from Italy. And when we landed in Havana in the early hours of this morning, those boxes were handed over to local organisers who are going to distribute it where it's most needed.
Now, you don't have to go very far to see how that embargo is playing out. On Monday night, before we left, there was a complete blackout of the island as the country's electricity grid just gave way. That was the most intense in a series of rolling blackouts, some of which have lasted for days, that have been taking place across the island since the embargo began. Transport has been affected too. The streets are eerily empty of cars and buses as movement becomes increasingly difficult during this fuel shortage. Man-made fuel shortage, American-imposed fuel shortage. On Monday night, Donald Trump spoke of taking the island, essentially through the collective punishment of the people of Cuba. Now, that's a kind of classic US playbook for Cuba. It's been going on for decades, only made explicit and intensified by Mr. Trump.
Taking Cuba in some form, yeah.
And Cuba's president, Miguel Diaz-Canel, has said that any attempt to take the island will be met with impregnable resistance. That resistance is now international, with several more delegations set to arrive later in the week, including a flotilla from Mexico. And I'll be here throughout.
So, Frank, what's the perspective of the Green Party on this issue?
Yeah, I mean, so the Green Party sets its policy one member, one vote. So we don't have policy set on this, although it'll be interesting to see how this situation evolves and if something which will be taken to conference, which is happening later in March, perhaps specifically on this issue, which will be good to see. But I think we sort of have we all have a general understanding of where the Green Party stands on this kind of behaviour. I mean, 11 million people have been plunged into darkness. That means hospitals can't operate safely, food is rotting, rubbish is piling up on the streets. This isn't foreign policy. This isn't negotiation and diplomacy. This is like collective punishment of an entire population. And that certainly isn't the politics that I want to see or the Green Party wants to see. But I think maybe Trump does deserve the Peace Prize after all of this, because he's definitely done something in building solidarity amongst those of us who want peace and against war and fascism. And so the more he does, the more he strengthens the feeling amongst those of us that are there on the floaty, those that want to deliver aid, and those of us that want to resist the extremism of Trump-like right-wing politics. Nobody should be able to treat other countries like this. And obviously, Trump has this track record, unfortunately, of thinking he can boss around anyone he likes. It's horrendous politics, not the politics of progress, of understanding that we're on one world altogether and want to make it the best one we can.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that the so-called special relationship that we have with Trump is just, completely down the pan now, or do you think it's standing strong? Because it seems that when the American government behave in this way, whether it's talking about taking Cuba, whether it's about talking about invading Greenland, to name just two examples, it seems as though Keir Starmer just sort of rolls over and says, "Yeah, okay, Trump, you do those nasty things, and we'll support you." Like, what does this all mean for the special relationship?
I mean, you've said it there, Callum, and this is the thing, that special relationship, as far as I'm concerned, is completely eroded. It doesn't mean we shouldn't try to salvage it and try to repair that with the American people. But Keir Starmer is desperate to pander to Donald Trump, and I'm not really sure why. From what he thinks that brings to him politically, perhaps, or to our country. We need a better kind of politics, and just hearing Trump say, "I think I can do anything I want with Cuba," and he quite clearly has that mentality with Venezuela or Iran or Greenland or anyone else, and he thinks that he can grab anyone by the pussy, right? This is a guy who thinks he can wade his way around into girls' changing rooms at a beauty pageant. This is a guy who thinks that he can own anyone and anything. And I think that we have to be really strong in condemning this language of empire and not democracy, and people who think that they are kings of their little fiefdoms. And we have to stand up to that collectively. So I'm disappointed to see the way that Keir Starmer has responded to this, and I think we have to be much stronger as a country in condemning what the Americans are doing. No country, no matter how special that relationship should be above the law, and nobody should ever be able to own any other country or any other people, and certainly not be able to treat them in the way that the American blockade is currently impacting Cuba.
And obviously, we've seen, recently the flotilla of aid that went to Gaza, or at least attempted to get to Gaza with there. Am I naive to think that I never expected that we would see a similar, international aid? What's the word I'm looking for? Mission to counter the behavior of one of our biggest allies, say the US?
I don't think you're naive. I think we all thought that. I think each and every one of us hoped that we had had a turning point. And my short time in politics, kick-started by the referendum in 2016 and the election of Donald Trump, and that massive turning point now where we had peace in Europe for so long, and that's so precious. And to see the 1% and Trump and Nigel Farage and all lining up to try and Steve Bannon and all these people who want to really undermine our democracy, it is so terribly sad. And we can all sit here now and rally against it and criticize it, but it also almost like wanting to take a moment as well just to realize that this is reality, and this is unfortunately a very difficult place to come back from. and we have to do everything we can to get there. And I know that the Green Party will be in that fight, and I'm sure so many people who are listening tonight as well want to make sure that happens. But for me, this is a classic weaponization of fossil fuels. This is why we have to make sure that we have independence through renewable energy, and making sure that we have that sovereignty ourselves. Because at the end of the day, right, you can't blockade the sun, and so we have to really make sure that we can create a future in which we aren't beholden to someone like Donald Trump, and that we can protect ourselves, and have positive relationships with those who want to behave in a appropriate way with us and to create a positive vision, but not to be held by the knackers, because that's what Trump wants to do. That's his brand of politics.
Well,
And
I, I,
it's
wa-
just outrageous.
I wanted to ask you about motive because, and you've kind of touched on it there, talking about fossil fuels, because obviously, Greenland, Venezuela as well, we are talking about often um, countries, parts of the world that are rich in oils and natural minerals. Do you think that that is what it's about, or is this about some sort of macho man mission to sort of be? I mean, this is the guy who renamed the Department for Defense to the Department for War after standing for his second term on the basis that he, in his words, didn't wasn't involved in a single war during his first term in office, and I can't work out whether this is a typical thing straight out of the Trump playbook of him trying to be the big I am and say, look at me, I have power and I'm gonna enforce it, or whether it is purely just about money and fossil fuels and getting oil out of the ground to make America more cash. I mean, maybe it's a mix of the two. What do you think?
I think it probably is a little bit of everything, and there probably is some strategy and logic. And some people say, "Oh, maybe Trump is the smartest person, and we just don't realize it because there's this persona and all of this." But I think that the one thing I do know is that in a mad world, only the mad are sane. And I think Donald Trump's whole approach to life has to be to cause chaos and to sort of go into the clean river and muddy the waters and get all that silt up, and so that nobody knows what's happening at any one time, so he can control it. Because if you're the chaos creator, you're the only one that knows what will happen next. And so that's not to say that there isn't motive around fossil fuels and control, and I think really expanding an empire. I also think there's a touch of desperation in there, because Trump, probably a bit like Netanyahu, knows that when this all comes to an end, it won't be a pretty one for him. And he has to keep fighting to protect his own, well, to save his bacon and to keep himself in office. Like that's what he's got to do. And really, he's someone who should be on trial somewhere. So I think it's all a very complicated spaghetti of really self-preservation and wanting to just milk as much cash as possible.
Yeah,
It's
and I
very sad.
suppose the that feeling that there's a need for self-preservation obviously, implies that he can see his downfall coming, which I'm sure we'll all be pleased about. But we need to move on. Before we do, actually, obviously it's 2026. We're here. We made it, and we really, really want this year to be a big one for Turn Left. So we want to be more ambitious than last year, and we really want to get Turn Left on the map. You'll have heard us talking a lot about our desire to have a proper studio where we can actually get guests in person. And obviously, we want to be able to pay ourselves as well, and all the contributors at Turn Left, as well as the guests that come onto the show, for the work that we all do. As you know, at the moment, we're all volunteers, so that isn't the case. But your support over the years has been incredible, and we're ready to take this to the next level. We really are. So, as you know, we do rely on small donations, but if you want to be part of a media organisation that seeks to destroy the oligarchs, then please head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support, where you can support us monthly on Patreon, or there's another link for a one-time contribution. You can also become a YouTube member for just 99p. 99p. And if you can't afford to donate and you can't afford the 99p for the YouTube membership, then you can comment, you can hit like, you can hit the subscribe button, and you can support us by sharing our content with others as well. But thank you again for your continuing support. Now let's move on to our final story. A Green Party councillor has found himself in handcuffs, but not for the reasons that you may think. Frank Adlington-Stringer spent 10 days handcuffed to a GB News commentator for Channel 4 show Handcuffed, Last Pair Standing. And if you've not seen the series yet, you can catch it on Channel 4 on demand. But please be aware the following segment does contain major spoilers for the show. Now, the show saw 9 couples handcuffed together for up to 10 days for a chance to win £100,000. However, each pair were drastically different from each other. A gay porn star with a posh prude, a former Reform candidate booted from the party for racism with a black youth worker, a millionaire car collector with a struggling woman who works multiple jobs and still finds time to volunteer to feed the homeless, and, of course, Frank, a Green Party councillor with a GB News commentator, amongst others. Luckily for us, Frank, as you know, is this evening's guest, but before we chat about his time on the show, let's take a look at some of their highlights. And again, the following videos contain spoilers for the show.
What did you think for Lynn? You said E, Vladimir Putin. I can tell you that's correct. I mean,
Don't off me.
It's vegan.
I'm sorry, I'm still on the reform thing.
Right, okay.
Yeah, wow.
Don't worry about it.
Green Party councillor Frank and GB News commentator Lynn started the competition at each other's throats.
Can I just say that
We have
NHS
different, I
okay,
have
can
different
I just
priorities.
say
Can I
the money
finish my
that's there,
sentence?
okay?
We've had our ups and downs, that's for sure.
His whole energy is very judgy.
But by not talking politics, they found they actually enjoy each other's company.
I think we've aired all of our dirty laundry now. I really hope there's nothing left that Lynn can say to upset the apple cart. And I hope that this is a real springboard moment for us to actually be a team.
You can leave now. You've got some catching up to do because
We have,
2 other couples were set off in advance of you. Well done.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank
Well
you.
done,
Thanks very
Charlie.
much.
See you later, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
See you later.
Thank you.
Enjoy it.
Thanks
Have
very
fun.
much.
I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry.
Honestly, it's been one hell of a journey.
Really
and
good, yeah.
nothing will ever take this away from us. I've enjoyed every second of it. I don't feel at all bitter or upset. Whether Lynn and I are friends, I don't know, because we do disagree on sort of fundamental things. I feel she's really quite individualistic, really quite selfish at times. But we do share something now after this journey.
There we go. You are free.
I think Frank has learnt from me that he needs to stop being so extreme. I learned that some of the things I say, I need to be a bit more considerate in the delivery. I'm still going to hold my views, but, you know, my words can affect people and how they feel.
So, Frank, what an experience that must have been. Can I just say, having watched the entire series, me and my partner were sat at the sofa shouting at the television every night during every episode, both yourself and Lynn, but also everyone else that was involved. I'm a huge sucker for weird and wonderful reality television. I don't like your normal traditional reality TV. Can't stand it. Stuff like this, I just think is fascinating. Tell us all how you ended up in this situation.
Yeah, well, what a situation to find yourself in, right? Handcuffed to someone who has, some TV executive somewhere have plotted to find the person that they think you will get along with the least in this world. And they, they certainly found a good partner for me, I think, in Lynn. I mean, we had some battles, and you were shouting at the TV. I mean, I was shouting at Lynn. We really did go through all of the emotions. And just being handcuffed to someone. I mean, imagine if it was your friend or a family member, your own partner, trying to just get through a day of practically, being able to move around and do the things you want to do. Everything becomes a compromise. Mm-hmm. But that's why what makes a show so good. I think that's the premise of this, is that it forces you to rely on each other. And that's a bit what it's like out there in our communities, right? We need to rely on the bus driver and the nurse and the people that are going to clean our streets. And so that was, I think, where Lynn and I had to find that sense of community between us,
And
which was a
we'll
challenge.
we'll come on to some of the sort of the ups and downs of it in a moment, but just talk to me a little bit about the sort of the casting process and what happened. So you presumably somebody reached out to you, you were sort of asked to sort of look into it. What was your sort of first thought when you first heard what the premise was? What part of it made you think, yeah, that's something I really, really want to do?
Yeah, so somebody reached out and had just seen my Instagram and said, come and be a part of this project. And it was, I think it's the fact that it's the ultimate challenge, really. It is the biggest test of not just your own values, because as when you're in a position like mine as a politician, you're always going out there, putting yourself out there and waiting for someone to trip you up or trying to ask you a difficult question. And Lynn, as a political commentator, that's all she was doing all the time. So I think for myself, it really helped me to go out there and really test my own views. And I was a bit naive in thinking, I could go and change somebody else's mind and prove, the Green Party knows all the answers to everything and it's going to be easy to be a walk in the park. But more than anything, it's that, can you find common ground? Can you survive this test? And are there things that bring us together? Because, no matter where you are party politically and where your allegiance might fall, it's a divided time in this country, and that's not nice for anyone. And so, if we can try and do something to bridge that, then that's a positive. And maybe the show went some way in towards doing that.
Well, obviously, you knew that you and Lynn would have some differences because that was the premise of the show. But when you were first
Sure.
paired up, you hadn't been told what those differences were. So let's take a look at the moment that the penny dropped.
We have like hot pepper sauce made in Barbados, and this was one of the reasons why I actually voted for Brexit. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but I'm passionate about my own country that I was born in economically doing well. So when I see imports from Barbados in places like Tottenham, I get really, really happy.
Did you vote for Brexit?
I did, yeah. I did vote for Brexit.
Do you mind if I ask how you would vote in an election?
I used to work for the Labour Party. I voted for Conservative. If I had to vote tomorrow, I'd probably vote Reform. Do you know what? Let's get a basket.
You're going to need more than a fucking basket, Lynn, after that. Fucking hell, Jesus Christ. You would vote for Reform?
I would, yeah.
You're joking?
I'm not. Have you ever had bun? It's vegan.
I'm sorry, I'm still on the Reform thing.
Right, okay.
Yeah, wow.
Don't worry about it.
I feel really shell-shocked, actually. All of my expectations, all of my preconceptions, right or wrong, have been thrown out the window completely. I'm in unknown territory. I am just trying to handle this and go with it.
Okay, let's go around the corner. I don't think there's much else to get, to be honest.
I am struggling to understand how I can be in this shop and for you to tell me that.
One of Reform's key figures is an Asian man.
It doesn't make a difference.
So there you are in the middle of what appears to be an international supermarket, and you must have thought to yourself, well, obviously, you're a Green Party councillor, that is quite a big, important part of your life. So there must have been a moment prior to that where you'd thought, maybe it's the politics that we're going to disagree on rather than something else. But what was going through your mind at that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I did know that they were going to be pairing me with somebody who had different opinions. I guess I didn't know. When I first met Lynn, I thought maybe we're going to be disagreeing. Maybe she doesn't believe in climate change. I mean, we have very different opinions on climate change, and I didn't know the extent of our differences. And I mean, if you'd told me that I would be paired to someone who, someone from Barbados, a woman, and that she would have such regressive views on gender, and that she would also be so aggressively anti-migrant as well, I would just and would consider voting for a far right political party. I just would have been completely perplexed by that, and I still am. And whilst Lynn and I have had 10 days to talk about a lot of these things, for me to try and understand a little bit of her perspective, and I don't for 1 minute, expect that everyone has to think like me or should be liberal or you, know, you think the same way socially or economically. There's just a whole new level to deciding that you're going to vote for reform when it really is like not in your interest. And so really digging deeper into that was part of my
And did you
mission.
did you learn anything from Lynn about that as to how somebody like from her sort of background can want to support a party like Reform?
Money is the answer. So Lynn is a landlord, and essentially when it boils down to it, Lynn will vote for whichever political party are going to favour her most, and she would openly say that.
So
That doesn't mean though that she's just like, oh well, they've got other policies that I don't care about. I think part of her role as a political commentator is also she likes a little bit of controversy and likes maybe the surprise factor of, oh, I vote for it's a bit edgy.
You talk about money. I mean, she made the claim in the show during one of her interviews where you had your headphones on that you had admitted that you're from a family of millionaires. So what was the deal there?
I know it's really funny that that Lynn said that, because she knew at the time like I was on universal credit and unemployed, and it's just like the Matthew Goodwin whole thing, like Hannah Spencer's must be a millionaire. And so it's funny that these people who actually want to be millionaires, actually are rich, actually are voting for their own financial interests, are trying to use that as an attack line against us, and like completely unfounded as well. And waiting for me to have the headphones on before she decides to make that comment.
Yeah, and I do have to ask, by the way, I've got the question later on, but I'll ask it now. Speaking of the headphones, because obviously when being interviewed, basically for those of you that haven't seen it, all the pairs, the other pair would have a set of headphones on so that the person that we're paired with couldn't hear what was being said about them. What were you listening to? Because there's some brilliant shots of everyone throughout the series, sort of like vibing along. Presumably you've got some music. Did you get to choose what you heard there, or was it just whatever they played for you?
So we had a brilliant sound guy, Riaz, and so we each had a team with a camera person and someone on the mics, and then runners too. And Riaz he followed us for 10 days, and so his job was sorting out the music, and he did some excellent DJing. And so it was almost like the best moment of each day when you got to put the headphones on, get some music, bit of peace and quiet. And I think Riaz understood that. So
and I suppose it's a for you both. It's a moment for you and Lynn to also escape from each other as well, which you otherwise wouldn't have, didn't get. So
no, because you can't slam a door and walk off, and that was the only moment where you could just sort of be at peace. But you weren't in much peace because you thought, well, she's saying something horrible about me. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, but I mean, you say that it wasn't quite the only moment, because obviously being handcuffed together brought other challenges as well, like showering and using the bathroom. And this led to one moment that I never thought I would see on national television. Let's take a look at this.
Lynn's a Brexit voter, Lynn's intending to vote for reform, Lynn's on GB News. These are huge things, and they pitch us right against each other.
It's been 3 days. He's had a lot of vegan food. You can do the math. Oh!
You hear it?
We're hearing it.
But I can convince anyone to vote Green. Bring Lynn on my journey.
You wash your hands, give us a hug.
Well done. Well done.
You must feel lighter.
So, that was Frank having a poo on national television. How did you sort of get through these more intimate moments? I mean, there was another scene earlier on in the series where Lynn's getting in the shower and you're there with a blindfold on, and your arms sort of being twisted at a funny angle. Obviously, you were given a longer set of handcuffs for number twos, but showering, you still had just the normal handcuffs on. So how did you sort of get through that?
Yeah, so I mean, Lynn had to put up with me, going to the toilet for a poo, but I mean, I had to put with her all day long spewing crap. So, but yeah, it was. I mean, the hygiene side of things, I kind of thought would be. That wasn't a problem for me. I didn't think when I first signed up for the show. I thought, we'll just get through that bit, and it's necessary. It's part of life, and we'll just sort that bit out. But Lynn's actually a very private person, and so there was a bit more sort of negotiation about how we were going to do things. Quite often with me sort of being forcefully led around by Lynn and having all sorts of things thrown over my head. I have a towel chucked over my head to keep me blindfolded while she's getting dressed, or dragged over, you need to go this way or that way. And you saw her with the incense stick as well just then. So
And was that genuine? Is that just what she was like, or was that for show, the incense thing? Was that actually just...
How much of Lynn is character and how much is reality, I don't know. And there were moments in the show where we did sort of break down some of those walls, and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But yeah, in terms of the hygiene and stuff, I mean, there was no TV magic. We were handcuffed 24/7. Even when the long chain went on, it was always put on first before the smaller one was taken off. So we were always cuffed, and it was a challenge.
I've not used the clip in the show, but there was a moment when you were well, I think Jonathan Ross in the voiceover said it was 24 hours. I'm not sure if it was, but where you were basically just locked in a room together with nothing to do. What was the bathroom situation there? Did they let you out for the loo, or was it a bucket? Like, how did they deal with that one?
There was actually a toilet, just off off camera, so it wasn't that bad.
Okay. I wasn't sure, because when I was watching it, I was thinking, wait, are they just going to shit in a bucket now for the next 24 hours?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that they didn't make us do that, because they really did put us through our paces.
Well,
but being in that room alone was hard.
And you made some very interesting decisions, shall we say, throughout this. One really had me raising my eyebrows. For some reason, you decided to take Lynn door knocking with you for the Green Party. You said in the last clip that we've just seen that you can convince anyone to vote Green. And in fairness, this is something I've seen you do firsthand. But do you think you were being a little bit cocky to assume that Lynn could be converted?
Bit of a brass neck on me then. I think I've learned a lot since then. I don't know. I think that you can, with most people, have a reasonable discussion about politics and at least take people on a bit of a journey with you. I think my biggest reflection from the show is that you can't change people's minds, they change their own minds. And what you do is you create the space for people to be able to go on a bit of a journey with you. And Lynn and I definitely did that. And I think the one thing I hope I did during the show was that I created a space where Lynn and I could both be vulnerable, both be curious, both ask questions, and go through that together. So whilst the door knocking was a complete, total failure, waste of time, and we just stood there arguing, I think perhaps quite often after these heated exchanges, Lynn and I then had the space to reflect.
Well, there's a really nice moment that I'm going to come to in a minute, but before we do come to that, we've actually got a clip of you and Lynn on the campaign trail, so let's take a look at this.
He doesn't respect me, my job. I don't feel I'm able to get a word in edgeways. To be honest, I've never been on a doorstep like that. It is really difficult.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Well, so far, not the most popular. Why did they agree with me?
They didn't agree with you. You agreed with them because all you want to do is nod along and not offer solutions. What do you want someone to do about it? And don't just give me another GB News headline catchphrase like, stop this. What are we going to do?
I'm not a politician.
So you don't have the answers?
Neither do you. Why are you shouting?
Because you're not answering a question.
I am, but you're shouting at me.
You're saying lower taxes.
You're supposed to be the party of peace, and you're shouting. Frank was getting slightly overzealous. I could see why. We're in his environment, but you don't need to lose yourself and start shouting at me, because guess what? I'm not going to give a shit about your green policy.
So, obviously, that was what happens when you take a Reform UK voter and a GB News commentator to knock on the door for the Green Party for you, which was probably not the best thing.
Yeah, she's an absolute wind-up merchant, to be honest.
It was great though, because what people haven't seen there is just before that there's a clip where you're actually knocking on the door, and it's like you're trying to just do the whole spiel to, you're knocking on a door, you're like, I'm here from the Green Party and this is why we're here, and this is what we're about. And then Lynn said, like, yeah, but that's not right. And actually, I think this, and I think, and it was never going to end well, Frank. It was never going to
No.
end well. But I would like to say, just before we chat more, so following that door knocking moment, it then led to this really beautiful moment that I'd like to share.
I really want us to find a positive way forward. I'm done with this needless butting of heads, and I don't know, I think she kind of benefits somehow from keeping us divided. I think she quite likes the green and the blue, and I'm this and you're that, and I think if we're going to go through this, we have to do it as a team, and to do that, there needs to be a bit more honesty. This is the number one thing for me. Sometimes I just feel like there is a facade that I can't, like a wall that I can't penetrate, and I do feel like you haven't been open in your emotions in the way you feel. I was still looking for your heart, which feels like a massive thing to say, but it's like I'm desperate to like chip away at this wall, to get in there and to feel like, there's Lynn.
You're not the only person that said that. As a political and social commentator, I'm quite forthright and quite passionate. However, I'm quite a private person. And that's probably why I don't really have new friends. My old friends get me because they've been here for over 20 years. But new friends, no, it's difficult. I just don't open up my heart unless I'm in that real need for romance or real need for close family situations. Or
But what are we to do now?
I just...
Right now, you're my wife, you're my mum, you're my friends, you're my brother, you're my everything. You're my life right now. I know that the only way that I can do this is by, like, quite frankly, loving you more. This, for me right now, this conversation has been the best part of this so far.
You think?
Yeah.
I'm glad. Honestly, I am.
I remember when I watched this, and I think I actually messaged you about it at the time when I saw it, because it was just a really nice moment where I think we actually, for the first, and I appreciate that obviously, you know, there's a lot of this is to do with what they've edited and what they've chosen to show and what they haven't. But it was the first time watching the show that I feel that we really got to see like a more just human side of the two of you. Obviously, we've talked a little bit already about the intensity of the whole experience. Like, it's obviously not normal to have someone else literally attached to you for 10 days. And as the program went on, you seemed to find a way of getting along with each other, and it honestly tended to mostly involve just not talking about politics. But in that clip that we just watched there, you talk about, you know, trying to find a way to sort of love Lynn more. And at the end of your time on the show, you said that in the clip that we watched at the beginning that you still weren't sure if you and Lynn were friends. Do you think it's possible for people with such extreme differences in political views to form and maintain friendships and to get along? Or do you believe that some issues create red lines that just completely prevent this altogether?
I think that's the ultimate question, really. And I think Lynn and I have gone some way in proving that you can at least endure each other's company, and perhaps that's only when you really literally do survive, or when you need each other for survival. And so, for us, you know, I couldn't tie my shoelace without Lynn also bending down, right? And so we really did need each other. And I'm pleased that we did manage to get these moments where we could open up. And I think actually, and whilst not most of it was shown on TV, Lynn and I did actually manage to have some conversations about things, particularly that she's been through, really personal moments in her childhood and upbringing that she hasn't shared with many other people before, if anyone. And that's kind of where I think that we can find connection with others, is if we create that space to be really honest about who we are as people and the things that have shaped us. And so, yeah, with Lynn, 100%, it was about creating a space for her to open up. Perhaps there's a reason why those walls are up, and perhaps, I don't know, maybe it's that old saying of hurt people. And so maybe with Lynn, I think coming away from this, realizing that you can trust other people.
Because I do think it speaks of a bigger issue with the divisions in the country at the moment as well, but especially when you're, you know, when you're somebody like me and you or Lynn whose world is so tied into politics and debating and, you know, arguing with people who disagree with you. Let's just call it what it is. everything can feel really, really life and death. But actually, in the situation that you found yourself in, I think you say it there in the clip. It almost was life and death. Like you say, you couldn't even tie your shoelaces without Lynn bending down and vice versa. But actually, as a human race, we rely on each other, right? You talked about this at the beginning of this segment, where you talked about the fact that we rely on the healthcare workers and the bus drivers, and we go through life day to day where we're relying on other human beings to allow us to just live and survive. And I wonder, this is just me thinking out loud, but I wonder if we, as political content creators, as political commentators, as people whose life is so ingrained in politics and debate, could maybe also learn a lesson from that. But on that point of learning lessons, just before we wrap up, what have you learnt most about yourself from this experience? And did Lynn make you see anything differently or in a new light at all?
I know Lynn sort of profoundly claimed at the end that she made me be less extreme. Uh, Coming from someone with views as extreme as her, I find that difficult to hear. I don't think that. I think what I have taken away from this show is, personally, that it's okay to put yourself first sometimes. And so I see Lynn as quite a selfish and individualistic person, not just in her politics, but in the way that she conducts her life. And quite often, I think as someone who cares about community and bringing people together, sometimes you can be a bit of a people pleaser. And so I've taken in a small way a little bit of like, okay, I'm gonna put myself first in these situations. So that's a nice thing I've learned on a personal level, and then also learned a lot. I think about, we talked about earlier about perhaps that cockiness of being able to change somebody's mind. I think I've realised that there are ways to go on that journey with somebody else and to maybe not be so brash about it. So mostly positive things. I think, in fact, all round positive things I've taken from this.
Yeah.
The experience itself might have been very testing at times, but I've gained a lot from it.
Well, there's lots of other brilliant moments, both with yourself and Lynn and the other contestants, that I definitely recommend people go and watch on. It's all on Channel 4's website. You can see the whole thing. It's 6 episodes. I think you first properly appear in episode 3, although there's some sort of snippets of you in the first 2. But honestly, I just thought it was just a fantastic piece of television. So, well done for yourself and Lynn for getting as far as you did. And just to people watching as well, Lynn did want to be here. We did try to get her on for this segment. We were going to record it yesterday. There was a bit of a mix-up that was my fault. And unfortunately, she wasn't able to make it this evening. But she did say she was happy for us to speak to Frank about this on his own. So... but yeah, thank you for that. Just before we go, we're going to go to our comments, I think. Should we bring Curtis in, our producer? Hello. Copyright. Yeah. Oh no, they can't hear you. No, hang on.
Can hear me.
Hang on, you're big on the screen now. We don't want to do that. Yeah, we can hear you, but nobody else can hear you.
Okay, yeah, you should be able to hear me now.
There we go.
There's 2 Curtises for some reason. Anyway, what I was just saying is it's not a show we usually do in terms of the third story, but I thought it was quite nice. Apart from the second story, it was quite a nice show for a Friday, so I thought that was quite refreshing. I just wanted to say thank you to our viewers, because the stream cut out for a couple of minutes due to copyright, because we had a lot of Channel 4 clips. Bit of an oversight from me, because I know the BBC usually cut you after 30 seconds, but Channel 4, I thought we were fine.
We've only used clips that Channel 4 have okayed for Frank and Lynn to share, so we should.
It's an automated thing, to be fair, but we were back up and we still have a strong viewership. Despite that, let's bring up our comments then. I'll start with the super chats. Thank you, Michael, our regular viewer, for gifting 1 turn left membership. Clara Ross 542 29 gifted £5, thank you, and said Trump
Thanks,
is
Lara.
certifiably insane. He is the ultimate misanthrope. He'd kill us for a few bucks. I mean, I think it's evident, and I've said this so many times, that at least the last 5 to 10 years, he's clearly got dementia, and that doesn't excuse his behaviour because he wasn't exactly a nice man beforehand. But he is ultimately a very incredibly selfish person, sexist, and actually, I mean, I can say this: he's a rapist and paedophile. I know other people might not want to echo that because of their positions. I can say that though.
I can say it too.
Yay! What a ledge.
Fuck Trump. Yeah.
Fuck Trump. Deus Ex gifted 1 turn left membership, thank you. And Antifa Vegan Boy gave 10 turn left memberships.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a very good show tonight. Sly Loris, I'm sure you're not Sly, gifted 5 turn left memberships. And Ryan Ball 663 became a member. We're going to go to your comments. These aren't in any particular order, so I'm just going to read them as they show. Tom James Talk says, I'm a green boy now. So, Frank, even though you might have not convinced Lynn, maybe it was you, or maybe the Greens are convincing some people. So that's good to hear. Obviously, you know, we're supposed to be impartial. I mean, I'm not a Green Party member. Some of us are.
I might be.
I mean, that's fine. I mean, you can be that. I'm not a Green Party member because I don't wed myself to a particular party, but it's absolutely obvious that one particular left-wing party has the momentum, and you can see that from our output, right? Actual Intrepid says Reform is dropping in support. They have a genuine chance. Now, I'm assuming this means a genuine chance for the Greens. Look, I think the Greens are doing very, very well, but the idea that they can win the next election, I don't think that's even remotely possible. I know, obviously, you might have to disagree. You could disagree and tell me why I'm wrong.
I think Zach had said something in an interview over the last couple of days that he hopes to be holding the balance of power at the next election.
I think that's possible.
Which I think is a more realistic, goal for the Green Party for the next election. Who knows after that? You know. Although that said, I mean, we can say this, but who'd have thought that the Green Party will be polling second only to Reform, 6 months ago, right? So who knows? Zach could be Prime Minister with every single seat in Parliament at the next election if he carries on.
Well, I want Frank
sustainability, so one step at a time, please.
I was hoping Frank was going to say, nope, Zach's the next PM.
Well, I think it'd be my preferred choice.
Would you want a cabinet position, Frank? If you stood to be an MP and you got elected, would you want a cabinet position?
Oh well, we'll have to see what they give me, haven't they? We'll have to negotiate.
To be fair, a good spot for you would be media and culture because you've now appeared on this Channel 4 programme. You got some insight there.
Maybe that proves I have no media and culture skills.
Oh, Matt, you took a shit on TV, so maybe not.
I mean, I'm the welfare and social security spokesperson nationally, so maybe that would be the brief I'd be lined up for.
Yeah. Do you know what is nice though is that the Greens aren't doing the Lib Dems where Joe Swinson was like, I'm going to be the next Prime Minister, the 2019 election. Like, I hate that. You can absolutely say, it's like, polling-wise, you're a major party. Membership-wise, you're a major party. Seats, you're still a small party. And it's, I don't like hearing parties with, 5 seats saying, oh, yeah, we're going to be Prime Minister. I think Zach saying holding the balance of power, that's a very realistic goal. Something that was probably not seen as realistic maybe before Zach was elected. I mean, people were saying 20 to 40 seats. It could be more.
If Carla and Adrian had said that they expected to hold the balance of power at the next election, they would have just been laughed at. Like, it wouldn't have, it just wouldn't have, it would have just sounded complete and utter nonsense. But in fairness, if Zach had said that 6 months ago, I think he would have been laughed at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excuse me, a hell of a lot has changed.
I mean, ultimately, right, politicians will say what politicians say, but it will be the voices of the people that decide, won't it? So, I mean, if enough people want that to happen and if people vote Green, then it's our power, really. And I think that's the thing to remember.
Spoken like a true Democrat.
Yeah, I was about to say that was a very politician answer, but Han, you can. not going to try and pronounce that. Delit. I don't know. Some of your names are really funny. The Greens are the only hope I have left. Sick and tired of being sick and tired. That's nice, I suppose, to hear. Like the only hope left. I would caution not to sort of stick entire hope on one political party or particular figure. I mean, lots of us kind of did that in 2017 with Labour, but it's at least you're the party that has hope in their slogan, I guess.
Yeah, we do, and we're going to deliver some of that hope. That's for sure. I think people feel it. That's the thing, because like I just said, politicians can say it, but people actually feeling that hope is another thing. And so the fact that that's actually resonating with people, yeah, and like we said, like I'm all about cooperative politics. So I think it will take a lot of us to change this country, and a lot of effort, and hopefully we just get there somehow with all of us pushing in the right direction, I think. But I resonate with this completely. Like, I felt sick and tired. I still feel sick and tired of politics as it is, and something needs to change. So let's hope Zach can do it.
And it's honey candle it. Thank you.
Oh, of course. Okay, right. I was sort of reading it word by word, but actually looking at Hanny. Yeah, okay.
Can you handle it?
Dominic Jones says, "What a gorgeous room." I was thinking the same. I love your lighting because you've made the background dark and you got the light on you, and it looks very nice.
Is that me? My gorgeous room?
Yeah.
Not mine, is it?
I mean, Callum's just got a white wall behind him, so who else are we talking about?
No, it's looking nice, isn't it? There's a messy table over this way behind me. It's like a vacuum cleaner on there. But yeah, no, thank you. That's really nice. I'm just seeing here in the comments as well. Delivering hope and dope. I like that. Maybe that should be our next.
Very good. Like that. Love that.
We
also,
can leave that one for when the Greens are in power, just so that the right-wing press don't run with it. Yeah.
And by the way, in terms of your table, let's remember the famous line from Aunt May and Spider-Man 1: "All the best men are untidy."
I'm gonna.
In which case, can I just zoom out then and show you what's around me?
Spec says, "I think the doggo is hungry." Yeah, your dog. Introduce us to our dog. I mean, your dog's probably not around now, but earlier on, your dog was around.
Yeah, the dog was around. He's gone. Bruno. He's a rescue.
We don't talk about him.
No, and he keeps every time. Honestly, I mean, I sit here all day long doing things like this, and he always wants to have a go as well. So next time we'll have to invite him on as my co-guest.
Yeah, we will do that. Tell them.
I mean, I don't know what commentary your dog can provide, but
I do this thing sometimes because I'm
Lynn on.
I knew that was going to happen. I was waiting for that comment.
I try and do this thing when I'm doing Vox Pops where I'll interview dogs, but it never makes it into the videos because it doesn't land very well. It's like, so what's your thoughts on this? And they just try and eat the microphone.
Yeah, well, Hannah has managed to make it work somehow with the greyhounds. So.
Well, I interviewed the greyhounds a couple of times, and to be fair, I mean, Judy gave me something, but the others they weren't having it. They were just like, nah, just give us cuddles instead. That's all.
I mean, not gonna lie, they were too busy campaigning. They don't want to speak to random political commentators, do they? They're trying to get Hannah elected. Right? I mean, do you think she would have won with 4,000 votes about the greyhounds? I don't think so.
Definitely not.
I'm sure there were people that exclusively voted for Hannah based on that. Michael Askew says, so I didn't watch Question Time. Caroline was magnificent on Question Time too. Did anyone watch it?
I've not seen it yet. But I will be watching it. I will watch it, and I will get back to Michael next week. Caroline's always fantastic, though. I recorded a video for the Green Party during the campaign. Actually, it was Caroline and Hannah in conversation. There's a clip of it that's gone out on social media already. They've now got the full thing. I think that'll be going out at some point. And they were just having a chat about, sort of Caroline sort of telling Hannah a little bit about what to expect if she gets elected, and Caroline talking about her experience in Parliament. But there's just something about Caroline Lucas when I see her speak, and even back in the day when I was a member of the Labour Party and Caroline Lucas was the only MP the Greens had. I've said this to her. There'll be so many times that I'd be watching a debate in Parliament and Caroline will get up and speak, and I'd be cheering her on like, "Go on, Caroline! You tell him, you show him." Because she's just got that about her.
I mean, you sound a bit biased there, Callum.
Do I really? Listen, I will be biased any day of the week for Caroline Lucas. I think she was a fantastic politician, and she's paved the way for. She was sort of the foundation for the other Green MPs that have come since. So. Yeah, I've got a lot of time for Caroline Lucas.
Yeah, you're
I
making me
think
feel like I need to say something neutral now.
yeah, do you want to be the person criticising the Greens then? I mean, look, I can be that neutral arbiter because I'm not a Green Party member, but for what I see from the outside, this I think like Zach Plancy's got that populist edge, whereas Caroline Lucas commands the sort of not saying that Zach isn't respectable, but Caroline Lucas has that respectability edge, I think, because there's a lot of people respect Caroline, and I think regardless of your political views, she's not polarizing. Zach is polarizing, but I think it's important to be polarizing because when people say, like politicians are divisive, name me a single politician really that isn't divisive. Just by having a policy prescription or your views makes you divisive. So, and I think that's good. I want Zach to be more divisive, to lean into that, because Keir Starmer trying to not be divisive and try to appeal to everyone is appeal to no one. But Caroline is one of the few who's like, yeah, like well respected. I think Karen is probably an important figure to still have the Greens, which is that Zach is really winning people over who are really angry with the establishment. But there might be some people who, might need to bring on in terms of the more quote unquote moderate, right? I do hate that term, but like that's some people see themselves
That's
that way and
why
could be convinced by someone like Caroline.
Yeah, but I think that's why she sort of paved the way. Like, as I say, I think you're right to say that about her in terms of she's definitely not polarizing, which I think is why so many people actually really like her as well. Poodle Fish Girl has just said you've been hanging around in too many middle class living rooms with her, Cal. There was a photograph that Steve had
God,
taken
yeah.
of that Steve Jackson had taken and put out on Twitter, and I was in that, and somebody went on the attack about the fact that
What journalist
living room
did
looked
that
very.
attack?
I can't remember who it was. I don't even know if it was a journalist. I think it might have been a Labour
It
councillor or somebody.
it was, yeah, but I think the journalist picked up on it because I got quite defensive. I was like, that's my colleague in there. You can't take the piss now.
Because they said, oh,
And it was a normal front room, wasn't even middle class.
yeah, because they said something like, "Oh, this because there was me, Caroline, I think, and Hannah in the photograph, and they'd said something like, "Oh, there's as many people that have attended private school in this photograph as having Labour's cabinet or something." And I think when I looked, I think there was about 3 in the cabinet, and I'm like, "Well, I ain't gone to fucking private school." Like what the hell? And like it was just really odd. And the best of it was the living room of a Green Party member that happened to live in the constituency, who'd basically at the start of the campaign said, if anyone needs anywhere to stay during the campaign, we've got a spare room you can sleep in, and it just happened to be their living room, and like it was just a bit of a. But I mean, it's like all the attacks on Hannah for the way she dresses, isn't it? If we're attacking people on what decor they've got in the living room, we clearly haven't got a point to argue about the policies. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yum Yum Strudel says Cuba has been sanctioned for 65 years. And I think it's a good point to bring up because, of course, Trump has accelerated the sanctions and obviously the oil blockade. But, I mean, this has been happening since JFK. Recently in the JFK files showed that America was planning to use chemical weapons against the Cuban people. So this has been happening for a long, long time. I mean, it's slightly eased with Barack Obama. It's not to say that Barack Obama doesn't have problematic foreign policy views. I mean, he's like the drone king, right? But there was a kind of a step to have more normal relations between the US and Cuba, which Trump is now reneged on. But but Trump is more aggressive, but nothing new, right? He's just sort of enacting 60 years of anti-Cuban foreign policy by America.
Yeah, really important point, well made. And this isn't something new, but it's something that's being purposefully ramped up, and so with such vulgarity as well. Like the way Trump speaks about this and his intent of like, I'm just going to go and do what I want is just something that it's just not very presidential, is it? And maybe why is it more shocking to hear someone state what they actually want to do? Like, for some reason, we find it more palatable, don't we, to hear, someone like Obama, for instance, who will present in a way that's, a bit more kind and compassionate and progressive, but will still go and do these horrendous crimes. Whereas someone like Trump, who openly says it, just offends us all way much more. In fact, he's being much more honest about it in a way.
True. That's a good point. It's being more honest about it, but I think that it's the respectability politics thing, which the liberals and the media absolutely love. It's like, well, because a lot of the media don't like Trump, not necessarily. Well, actually, definitely not on policy or an ideology, but his behavior. I mean, they will absolutely laud Obama if he wants to engage in sort of pro or like America first imperialist politics because he does it in a cordial way. He speaks well. He's a very good rhetorician. But Trump does it in a more honest and brash way, and suddenly he's a monster. Now, he is a monster, of course he is, absolutely. But like, you don't hear much of the media talk about how someone like Obama is really bad on foreign policy too. I will praise him on Iran, though. I mean, he did secure the US-Iran nuclear deal, in which Iran, even though they were never building nuclear weapons, concretely said they're not going to build nukes, and then Trump ripped it up. I actually have a question personally, actually, for you, Frank, in terms of the Green Party. Obviously, foreign policy is important for all of us, but I think particularly for the wider public when it comes to Gaza. Over the last couple of years, have you seen a big shift in terms of Green Party foreign policy, or at least a big conversation on the importance of foreign policy?
I mean, I think everyone has had to be more alive to it, given what's happening in the world, and so I think that's probably for all political parties have had to respond to these international crises, and some have done it well, and some have done it terribly. I think the Green Party has always had quite an international view of things, actually, given that like our sort of foundational principles are sort of those of protecting the planet. You know, this open borders policy that people want to talk about, the climate crisis. So I think there's always been an approach to sort of global solidarity, if you like, and seeing it as one world that we all need to protect, and our foreign policy approach being very much rolled into that. But yeah, there definitely has had to be an upping in the conversation, just given what has happened. I think, and as tragic as everything that's happened over the last few years has been, and I would not ever wish for it to have happened in order to allow what I'm about to say to happen. But I think that a lot of Green Party foreign policy, a lot of Green Party policy probably on the whole, has been largely missed because of maybe international events not opening up those conversations and discussions, perhaps in a way. And maybe Green Party representatives didn't feel that they had, because of that, the experience to talk about a lot of those policies. And so one thing that definitely has happened is that conversation's been opened, and whether they like it or not. I mean, I studied politics and international relations, so I'm very happy to talk about these things. But it has shoved the party into a space where we've had to have those conversations, and maybe the public have become much more aware of the fact that the Green Party doesn't just have policy on trees, and we actually think about other things as well. So it's been really good to have those conversations and talk about it. But I mean, the Green Party policy, like I said at the start of the show, is set one member, one vote. And so it's been in existence forever. And Zach or anybody else doesn't actually get to change the policy. So it's always been there.
Just to ask another follow-up to that then, because I saw some criticism about this, I think it was today actually on social media with regards to, I think it may have been Iran. It was to do with another international issue. Because of the one member, one vote system, Green Party in power, how would a Green government respond to foreign affairs that happen, very quickly in a way that's democratic with the party? Because presumably you wouldn't be able to get the entire membership to vote and decide, whether or not we should go to war against Iran, for example. I know that that's something the Green Party obviously wouldn't do, but how would that work in practice were the Greens to get into government?
So the Green Party has a philosophical basis, which just sets the framework for the Green Party and the vision. And then it has a set of policies for a sustainable society, which are then voted on by members. And so you have this policy, which is there sometimes on very specific issues, like whaling in the Faroe Islands. I know we have a policy on that, which is something ridiculous that we probably never need to talk about. And then you have much broader policy, which might be on healthcare or foreign policy, which is far more general. And so it does allow, I think, in most scenarios, that wiggle room for any leader to be able to use that as as a basis, and quite clearly we're a party that, like you say, we're a party that wouldn't want to do that because it's in our philosophical values, because our policy leans in a certain direction. And so it's not necessarily that we need to go and get members to vote on, are we voting on going to war with Iran? We know we're not going to do that because our broader foreign policy aims on going to send us in that direction. So I think sometimes, I'm not suggesting you're doing this at all, Callum, but I think sometimes political parties, unfavourable media outlets try to maybe use that angle of being uber democratic as a way of being unable to govern. But actually, I think it empowers our leaders to be able to make a really informed decision about what we should do and to have that evidence behind them from members.
And I think what you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think then from what you're saying is that essentially, as long as the decisions are in line with the philosophical values of the party, excuse me, the sort of the more intricate policy side that would normally come from the members, what can come after the fact, or?
Yeah, so you wouldn't need to get members to retrospectively vote on policy decisions, but what you're doing essentially is, you might, for example, and it happens across the country on sort of a local level. So you might have councils that are dealing with very specific issues that maybe only happen in their area, for example. Maybe they have a big project coming in from government, and they've got to make a decision, those Green councillors, based on what they think of that. They've got to refer back to what Green Party values are, what Green Party policy is, and make a decision themselves in line with that. Now, it is quite possible they might get that decision wrong, and members might not be very happy about that. And then so maybe at a following conference, they would toughen up policy to make sure that didn't happen again and hold those politicians to account. But it doesn't necessarily need to be voted on by. It's just there to inform those that are then elected to represent the policy.
Yeah, I suppose that the elected Green Party officials are already making decisions for the areas that they represent without the entire party voting on it. So why would it be any different in government?
And adding a bit more complexity to it is the fact that Green representatives aren't whipped. So that also, so you might
a lot of people criticise that, though. A lot of people don't like the fact there's no whipping system.
Yeah, and I think personally, I think it's a really positive thing. So I remember hearing Alistair Campbell talk about whilst he was involved in the Labour Party, they never once they never once actually penalised or punished Jeremy Corbyn for voting against the Labour Party. I mean, obviously they must have been doing things behind the scenes to twist his elbow, but they thought, having him there voting against things wasn't actually that damaging, and in some ways it made things look a little bit more democratic. And what Alistair Campbell was saying is he was criticising Keir Starmer for the way he treated rebels, because he was saying it creates more division. And so I think what we recognise in the party is that there will be areas where we don't see eye to eye. That doesn't mean there's going to be a Green Party councillor that suddenly sat there saying, stop the boats or whatever else it might be. But there might be areas where you don't, on a council level, you might not agree on a certain development, and for some reason, perhaps it affects one person's area more than another, and they can have different views on it, or whatever else it might be. Those intricacies of
or whether to install wind farms in your constituency.
or whether to, we won't go there. But yeah, that whipping system allows people to then vote on what MPs should do, be members of parliament. They should represent their constituency and do what's right.
I mean, I like hearing the fact that you're not going to be. Well, I mean, the theory is you're not going to be voting on every single response to policy, because you can't. When you're in government, it's very different. There's going to be things that happen day to day, and I mean, someone said online voting, but it's you still can't do that because you've got to be very responsive. I think having votes at conference, you've got policies in there, and you've got a foundation. I do think this nicely brings on this next comment from again Tom James Talk says, we need to speed up policy decisions at the Green Party. Can't wait for only 2 times a year to make changes. What do you think about that? I mean, of course, conferences are very expensive, but also not just about the money. It's about trying to organise people. 2 conferences a year to me seems like a lot. A lot of parties just have 1 a year. So Tom seems to think that maybe then there needs to be a way of speeding up policy decisions. Other people might say, actually, you don't want to be too quick to it. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, so you got to remember as well, following off what we were just saying, the Green Party's had 50 years of sitting around twiddling its thumbs a bit, and so there've been a lot of members who sat and thought through a lot of policy, and the Green Party does have a really far-reaching policy library, if you like, and so there's a lot of stuff there that can be leaned on. They've just resurrected the spring conference, which used to be a thing, and it will be happening as a one-day event. I think next weekend. Is it the 28th?
I think, yeah, annoyingly, it's the 28th, which is the day of the Together rally, where hundreds of thousands, if not a million, of people are planning on marching through London against the far right. So there is a clash there, because I know there's a lot of Green Party members that wanted to attend a conference that won't be able to because of that. But yeah, it's Sunday the 28th is it's 2 days. So Saturday the 28th is the policy day, and then Sunday the 28th is Sunday the 29th, sorry, is the training and classes and seminars and all that sort of thing.
Okay, and I mean, some people have wanted that to come back. I think it's bad timing with elections happening. To be honest, it's 1 weekend missed of campaigning. But I think 1 weekend, maybe conference could be slightly longer, maybe, or maybe we could find a way to speed up the actual process itself, make it more efficient.
I mean, given it's one member, one vote, the problem is, I mean, technically, you could send an email out to somebody on the Monday and say, this is a policy we're voting on, vote online, you've got until Saturday to make your vote. And you could do that all year round. The problem is, which is where conference is really useful, is that if you do it that way, if you just did it sort of every week, you lose the debate. And the first Green Party conference that I attended, there were a couple of issues, and actually, the policy on HS2 was one of those debates where I genuinely didn't know which way I was going to vote on that issue. And being in the room and being able to hear the debate and actually understand the arguments for, the arguments against, for me, they were the things that really sealed my decision to vote the way that I did. Whereas you wouldn't have that if it was just a case of here's the information. A lot of people probably wouldn't read it, and you might be voting on things that you maybe not as informed on as you otherwise could have been.
I absolutely agree with that.
So, oh God, please.
No,
I'll cut you off.
Go on, let's move.
Well, Nana says, and this is bringing back to your documentary actually. This sort of thing could really help engage voters from the other side of the aisle. I was actually thinking in a normie perspective, right? I think some people might criticize you for going on Channel 4 and doing this sort of documentary stuff. I'm sure you've heard it, but I think like the problem with politics, and I think problem with the left specifically, is we don't engage normie people enough. It's only political nerds. The right wing, I actually think, are more successful in going for this apolitical kind of person, largely because they do have billionaire media behind them, and also because their answers are very simplistic, right? Try being a leftist and have a critique of capitalism and invoking Marx and then getting someone to listen to that. I can't even get my own partner to listen to me based on Marx, let alone your average person. So I think this sort of thing is actually kind of good. All right. It obviously doesn't mean you have to have a shit in public or shit on TV every single time. But there needs to be a more concerted effort from either the Greens or the left more widely to engage in this kind of media, which isn't like fully political.
Definitely.
You know what?
I want to push us into that. No, I just want to say I want to push us into that space as much as possible. And, sometimes you do have to take a shit on national television just to get 2 minutes of being able to talk about the NHS or Brexit. Yeah. But at least it's getting us out there, and we have to do a little bit more of that. And as you say, Curtis, like the right have been so good at this, so effective at using the media. And we have to stop being perfectionists, I think, and doing what we can. And I kind of have used social media, I think, fairly effectively to be able to push out a bit of a message and to reach other people. And I think we're now just cottoning on to that, actually, as a party, that is an effective tool that we can use. And hopefully, by going on this show, I'm showing that we can go in this direction as well and just speak to people on a way they understand.
But I think this is what I loved about this show, right? Was the fact that, obviously there was yourself and Lynn, but then you had Yeah, I can't remember the names, but like you had the gentleman the black youth worker
Chris.
who was handcuffed to former Reform UK candidate who even Nigel Farage wanted nothing to do with the party because of his racist comments. And there was a really beautiful moment between the two of them where actually, Chris spoke to him about it and convinced him that actually you need he should put out a public apology, and if he felt that he wanted to do that, he could. And then you see the apology, and I mean we can get into the ins and outs of whether or not some of that was just because he was on the TV show and he like whatever. But I think other people see that there was that, and there was also the moment with and again help me out with the names, Frank, the lady that was handcuffed to the millionaire car collector.
Tilly and Anthony.
Tilly and Anthony. Tilly was absolutely fantastic. And there was a brilliant moment. Anthony was kind of, he didn't really believe that people had it difficult. He couldn't understand how somebody couldn't just, afford to buy a meal or afford to do even the small things. And Tilly took him she volunteers for, I think it's actually her charity where they feed homeless people. They make meals for people that are living on the streets. And she took him out and they went around and they spoke to people who were out living rough on the streets. And I thought Channel 4 handled it really well, actually, because, they kept it a distance from them and they didn't delve much into the stories of those people. But what we saw was Anthony's reaction to that, where he had like a light bulb moment where he was like, Christ, I hadn't realized that people actually genuinely had it this difficult. And his sort of whole mindset seemed to shift with regards to it. And what I think is really powerful about television like this is that actually what this show did really well was, yes, all right, it handled the direct political issues, Greens versus Reform, but it also tackled the more nuanced social issues that we struggle with as a society. And I think for sort of normal people that aren't engaged in politics that watch that and they see the way that people respond and react to that, I think shows like this do a really, really good job at actually bringing people round to thinking about things from a different perspective. And I think that's why I enjoyed it so much.
No, I'm pleased to hear that, and I hope it does go, some way into healing that division between people and showing that things can be done differently. I don't know. There's full-on conversation going on in the comments about my turds though now, so it sounds like people are more interested in the toilet than in politics.
I tell you, we always get to around 9 o'clock, and our chatters go on their own thing. I think that's probably a good time to probably wrap up. But I did want to quickly just flash up some comments. Nana also says, "Love your politics, by the way, Frank. You were my choice for deputy."
Thank you so much. That's really kind. Really, really appreciate that.
And I'll leave on this one because it's a really nice one. Revolutionary Independent says, I haven't voted in 30 years and now 58 years old. I'm considering the Greens at the next election. 30 years hasn't voted and think about the Greens.
That's incredible. Let's whatever happens, let's make sure you vote at the next election. And then hopefully it will be a Green vote, but definitely get there and tick a box. Being a Democrat again, aren't I?
I know. It's like, what you're on about, mate? If he's voting Reform, just say the election's the week after. I am not. I'm not part of a political party. I will absolutely say, look, Reform vote. Their elections are a different day.
They vote on Fridays.
Yeah, they vote on Fridays. Thank you so much for the comments, and thank you for allowing me to produce and bring the comments. I'm going to hand back to you now.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Curtis, for producing as well. We always appreciate it. But listen, Frank, thank you just so much for joining tonight and for giving your insight on all the stories, including the one that you were kind of at the centre of. I hope you don't mind us running it as Green Party councillor in handcuffs.
No, that's true. Okay. I'm in handcuffs for the right reasons, hey. So unlike most politicians, so that's okay.
Yeah. But listen, thanks. It's been a pleasure, and your insights have been greatly appreciated. Can we expect to see Frank? Your name maybe on a list somewhere to become an MP? Are you? Is it a dream of yours? I know there's people in the comments that would love to see you elected. Obviously, you'd have to be selected by the membership. I'm doing the thing that you do now, being the help. It's up for the members to decide. But if there's a demand for it, is that something that you'd consider in future? Do you think we might see you on the green benches one day?
Definitely would love to represent this party and anyone that would vote for me at the highest level possible. So yeah, I'm here to make sure that we can do everything possible to make sure that we get more Green MPs elected, and if that means me being one of them, then I would be absolutely honoured. So let's see what happens next. There's a long way to go to that general election, but that means there's plenty of time to get planned. Yeah, let's make it happen.
It really does. Well, Frank, thank you very much. So yeah, thanks again to all our usual viewers as well, and thank you for all of your donations and comments. As you know, we do rely on small donations, and we are all volunteers. So if you want to be part of a media organisation that seeks to destroy the oligarchs, then please head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support, where, as we've said before, you can support us monthly on Patreon, or you can use the link to give us a one-time contribution. And just a reminder again, you can also become a YouTube member for 99p. Thanks again. Hit that subscribe button if you don't already. Please remember to like and share the live as well. Even if you can't contribute financially, just sharing our content helps us massively. Thanks to all of you again. Thanks again to Frank and for Curtis. And that's it from me. And we'll be back on Monday. Good night.